30 years ago, a book was published that lit a fire across the country. The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie sparked a culture war.
Satanic Verses is an affair to civilization itself.
Between Muslims who believed they were defending the honor of their prophet and the fundamental right to free speech.
Took it out of the bag, and somebody with a match came and put it on fire.
30 years on, how do those who made a stand feel now?
If you are to say to me, do I regret it? Do I apologize it? Could we have done anything different? I would say no.
The conflict set off a chain reaction that we're still dealing with today.
It was the best gift ever for the National Front, the best gift ever.
The Salman Rushdie Affair was a kind of a turning point in my life. From that moment onwards, I did start to take on some of these kind of more extreme ideas.
If you think the Satanic Verses story is over, think again.
It's a critique of religion. That's useful. Is it?
Oh, come on then! Come on then! Come on then! Come on then! In the book!
Can I have my book?
You! I've got a birthday for you!
My name is Mobeen Azhar. I'm a second-generation British Muslim.
So I think I know what you're going to say, but you know, I'm keeping an open mind.
I'm a journalist and a radio presenter on the BBC Asian Network.
Mobeen Azhar.
I was born and raised in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, but now live in London. Despite the powerful impact the Satanic Verses had on my community, until now, I'd never read the book.
I've got a copy of the Satanic Verses in my house. I, for a long time, thought it was maybe to do with witchcraft or something, or, you know, is it a bit demonic? But the concept is actually something that is in Islamic history. There were verses that could have at one point made their way to the Quran. There is an account where the Prophet is visited not by the angel Jibreel, but by Satan. And Satan comes in disguise and whispers to him. So Salman has written here, the devil came to him in the guise of the archangel, so that the verses he memorized, the ones he recited in the poetry tent, were not the real thing, but its diabolic opposite, not godly, but satanic. It's a work of fiction which features a character called Mahound and his 12 wives. And it's loosely based on the life of the Prophet Muhammad, which to Muslims is sacred.
It doesn't say the name Muhammad here, but instead what you have is Prophet Mahound. Now, Mahound, if you trace back the word, it's a word that was used in the Middle Ages by Christians to describe the Prophet Muhammad. It's not a nice word, it means corrupt or of the devil. Rushdie's chosen it, and it refers to Muhammad in a derogatory way. How many wives? 12. How many whores? 12 again. The Prophet in his lifetime had 12 wives, and in Rushdie's account, they have the same names as the Prophet's wives. Of course it's a work of fiction, but it's very much based on what is in Muslim history. These are real things that we're sensitive about.
Is it a surprise that you've had the depth of reaction from the Muslim community?
Certainly. I mean, the scale of it is a surprise to me, and also is a great distress to me. I think what's true about the book is that it does break a number of taboos, which, in my view, are very important to break. The first is the idea that Muhammad's life cannot be discussed as if he was a human being. Muhammad himself always insisted not to have divine status. And yet, nowadays, we talk about him as if he was kind of perfect being. So yes, I think it's very important if the culture of a religion is to have an intellectual life, that such things should be discussed. And of course, the people who wish to control thought, the thought police, that's who's responsible for this action, don't wish one to do that.
British Indian Salman Rushdie was born in Mumbai in 1947 and brought up a Muslim. His family came to the UK in the 60s, where he studied at Cambridge University. Known for combining magical realism with historical fiction, the award-winning Satanic Verses was his fourth novel. I believe Salman Rushdie was completely entitled to write the book. Now, I want to explore the consequences the Satanic Verses had on my community. When people hear the word Satanic Verses, they think about how that community responded. I want to know what happened to those people. I want to know why they responded the way they did. I want to know if they regret any of it. I'm heading home to Yorkshire, to where the infamous book burning took place. I want to hear from the people behind the protests, who rarely make it on to the mainstream media. My parents came to Britain from Pakistan as economic migrants in 1963, then headed north to settle and raise a family. The north of England could be a tough place to bring up children for working class people, let alone for those getting to grips with a new culture and climate.
How many of your family are there living in this house now?
10.
Do you find it overcrowded at all, with 10 people in 3 rooms?
No, I don't think so.
The Pakistani immigrants who moved here mostly found work as mill workers and taxi drivers.
Asian workers were not paid overtime, received less holiday, and had non-existent chances of promotion.
They must understand our laws, our ways of life, our food and our clothes.
For my parents' generation, fitting into British life came at a cost.
Our children are losing their Islamic identity. Each day that goes by, a Muslim child is lost.
And everyday racism was commonplace.
At school, for example, you get on perfectly well with the white boys.
The white boys don't play with me.
Do they not play with just you or with any of the colour?
With any colour boys.
Workers Against Racism say racist attacks in Bradford are becoming common.
In 1988, when the Satanic Verses was published, some Muslims decided enough was enough, and it was time to make a stand. I'm on my way to meet a key player in what happened next, local Muslim community leader Muhammad Siddiqui.
There is enormous amount of filth and abusive language with the view of denigrating Islam and thinking of millions of Muslims all over the world as barbarians.
Assalamu alaikum.
Well,
Is it Mohammed?
It is, yes.
Can I call you Mohammed or
Yes,
Siddiqui?
you can.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
I'm
You
fine,
all right?
thank you.
Really
Yeah.
nice to meet
Thank
you.
you. Come in.
You all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Good, thank you. I got you something. You look a bit nervous. Are you nervous with this?
Not anymore, no. It's a book that we've been familiar with for quite a long time. The Muslim community felt so disgusted about it. This book needed the attention of the government in terms of repealing the law of blasphemy to include the Muslims as well.
In Britain, blasphemy laws at the time protected Christianity, but no other faiths. So Mohammed and members of the fledgling campaign group, Bradford Council of Mosques, felt they had little choice but to tackle the issue themselves.
We've been through a campaign. We wrote a lot of letters to MPs, the local councillors, government, asking them to ban the book. And unfortunately, they didn't, and nobody seemed to be sympathetic with what we were saying was in the book.
Before Bradford Council of Mosques decided what action to take, Muhammad was chosen to read the book on their behalf.
I was criticized a lot because people were saying to me, you read the book and you decided not to do anything about it. What's going on? Why are we in this sort of situation? And all this situation was new to us at that time. So as a last resort, we decided to put the book on the fire.
And what happened here with the book?
Once it was decided that the book was going to be put on fire, if we had a book this thick and set it on fire with a match, it won't work. You need something inflammable which catches fire quickly.
You put in the preparation?
Yes. You open the book here, put some paraffin all over. We had a stalk here, and then we put some nails through them there.
You crucified the book?
No, I haven't crucified the book.
But I mean, you did nail it to a stick.
Yes, that's right. And then put that whole thing in a black bag.
Have you got a black bag?
Yes, sir. Hey.
Can you grab it?
Then you'll be asking me to pin it down. And
No, we're not actually going to set it on fire. No, I don't think so.
Okay, because
those times have gone.
Yes, because I wouldn't be doing that now.
Muhammad Siddiqui was joined by over 1,000 Muslim demonstrators in Bradford on that fateful day. In full view of the police headquarters, Muhammad brought out his fuel-soaked copy of the Satanic Verses.
Took it out of the bag, and somebody with a match came and put it on fire. People were shouting, saying, "Kill the man." There were people actually going that far. There were people on the stage saying, "We are prepared to die for the honor of our Prophet." So people's feelings were inflamed again.
Setting fire to a book, this being in flame, holding it up. Were you stoking that fire a bit?
No, I think the people were only expressing their feeling, how they felt at the time. And unfortunately, the media took it a different way, and Muslims were suddenly seen as being killers and Nazis and calling for Rushdie's head and things like that.
The book burning in Bradford, with its echoes of the Nazis, was, the Muslims believe, what was needed to force Britain to take note of their protests. They say they won't rest till every copy of the book is destroyed.
When it sunk in, the kind of gravity of what you'd done, and where you saw it on the front of newspapers, on the news, all that kind of stuff, did you think some people are scared of us?
They shouldn't be, because Muslims are peaceful people.
I know, but they were, weren't they?
What we did at that time, it was how we felt. Because there was a lot of racism at that time, and there were a lot of far right-wing activities against Muslims.
The demonstration might have been small, but it struck a powerful chord. Many Muslims saw the book as an assault on their identities and faith, and they saw the lack of government action as confirmation of their status as third-class citizens. The underlying anger boiled over, as seen in this rare footage from a Bradford Council of Mosques meeting at the time. Muslim men, and in those days it was mostly all men, led the fight back. On the front line was General Secretary Liaquat Hussain and media liaison and committee member Ishtiaq Ahmed.
We the Muslims in the world condemn this book and call upon the publishers and the writers and the author of this book to give a public apology to the Muslims of the world, withdraw this book and burn it.
30 years on, I wonder if they regret any of their actions.
Assalamu alaikum. Nice to meet you. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Fine, yes.
How are you doing? Nice to see you again.
Their carefully stored press cuttings revealed that the Muslim community, previously ignored by the media, was now being depicted as extremists.
That's me.
Is that you?
That son says...
Dad... You're laughing, but it says 20 ways to spot a mad mullah, and then there's a picture of you.
Yeah, that's what for me, isn't it?
Why are you laughing?
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny.
Looking at that now and going back to that day,
yeah.
Did you have any kind of idea of the impact?
No, I don't think. Did Ishtiaq accept this kind of impact, response?
We thought that it's going to attract the attention. But whether we anticipate the scale of the action, to be honest, no.
They've done this how-to guide So you're laughing, but they're quite serious. 20 ways to spot a mad mullah. Number one, there are 1.7 million Muslims in Britain, but only a few are fanatics ready to die at the Ayatollah's command. Number two, they even expect their children to die for the holy cause. If you looked at this now, if this was published, everyone would go crazy.
The Rushdie Affair, in a very clear kind of way, highlighted to us that we were not being listened to. We were not being taken seriously. We were being pushed against the wall, and we had to do something to make this society know our sensibilities, our feelings, our emotions were seriously hurt. We did what we did in that kind of context, okay? If you are saying to me, do I regret it? Do I apologize it? Could we done anything different? I would say no, not in 88, not in 89.
30 years on, why is there no acknowledgement that, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do? Maybe it wasn't right to set fire to a book.
Would we do it again? I don't know. It's about justice, it's about equalities, and it's about taking our identity very seriously.
Muslims are a community, they are people, they are a nation. Idea that we will assimilate and we will just become as they are is a fantasy.
Muslim groups organised a massive rally in London, followed by a week-long vigil outside Penguin's offices.
Later rallies went beyond the mere burning of a book, instead using a life-size effigy of the author. The outpouring of rage was driving a wedge between Britain and its Muslim community. And the tabloids ate it up.
There was an 8-foot effigy of Salman Rushdie in gallows, set on fire. Is there a part of you that thinks, what these right-wing tabloids want, we served it on a platter. We gave them the images. Do you feel responsible?
You're doing what a lot of people do to us, and that is that you're saying you are to be blamed.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you,
you
gave them
No, we
something.
didn't give them. No, we did not give them that. Well, I don't take responsibility for that kind of headlines. The Muslim community now has a negative projection. Islam has a very negative projection. The responsibility has to be taken by the British media and how our legitimate concerns were projected. We were actually put into a situation where we felt as a community we had no option. We were still being treated as a minority, as an immigrant minority who has come to this country, and hopefully one day we will leave. That may have unleashed all kind of other things, but those other kind of things, we had no control, and I don't take any responsibility for that.
Ishtiaq and Liaqat served up this caricature of what Muslims are like and what Muslim men are like. So angry, shouting, bearded men on the streets making demands. They served up that caricature. And what happened then is the media chewed that caricature up and it spat it out. And the results of that, they've been living with, and we've been living with ever since.
I said it is uncivilized at the first place to write a book like this. How would you feel if somebody comes to you and call you or your father bastard, call your mother whore, prostitute? What would you feel?
While Britain was at the center of the Satanic Verses storm, the book was never banned on these shores. But in Pakistan and the Arab world, the book was met with an even more violent response.
The Satanic Verses are banned throughout the Islamic world. The protests, directed at the United States Embassy in Islamabad, followed the publication of the book in America.
The police turned to using real bullets, and the result was all too lethal.
5 people have died
and at least 60 injured.
And the day after, 1 man was killed in neighbouring Kashmir.
The controversy over Salman Rushdie's book boosting the position of the more extreme fundamentalists.
Then, from the Islamic Republic of Iran, came a call that would change everything.
مؤلف کتاب آیات شیطانی که علیه اسلام و پیامبر و قرآن
تنظیم و کاب را منتشر شده است. همچنین ناظرین مطلع از محتواجات محکوم به اعدام می‌باشند.
On Valentine's Day, Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa calling on Muslims around the world to kill Salman Rushdie.
We will kill you.
The streets of Tehran this morning were filled with crowds taking up the cry for Salman Rushdie's life. Their posters gruesomely disfigured, their demands all too obvious.
Despite their anger, the fatwa wasn't supported by many Muslims in the UK.
Emphasis on the way the Muslims have been carrying out activities, the way they've been protesting, seems to be a bit overplayed, I think.
Rather than the victims, we looked as the aggressors.
So do you condemn the death threats?
Certainly, most certainly.
Rushdie was actually unjustly condemned. He's not the enemy that the Muslims thought he was.
Another Muslim writer, Yasmin Alabaya Brown, who was working for the New Statesman at the time, wrestled with the complex questions of free speech and her own religious beliefs.
I adored Salman Rushdie. That the first books, he spoke to us and in a sense spoke for us about the kind of continually vexatious migrant condition, who you are, who you belong to, all of this, and in the most glorious way. So he was my hero, and I had never described myself as a Muslim because I thought it was my private business. But then this happened, and I felt I had a kind of duty to come out.
Sure, come out. You
Come
used that
out.
phrase.
I
yeah.
came out because everybody was discussing Muslims in such, including my friends and my writers I admired, as if they were barbarians, as if they were the most uncivilized people in language that I had never heard from left-wing liberals. So I thought, right, you have a duty now to say, stop it, I'm a Muslim, now say it to me.
Tell me about the first time you ever hear about the Satanic Verses.
I knew things were happening over this book. I'd read it, and I was uncomfortable with it. Something inside my head said, you know, all of us have to be really careful not to try and win position and praise by becoming what we think the white world wants us to be.
He was becoming what the white world
I don't know
wanted
if
him
he
to
was,
be.
but that's what I told myself, oh my God, this heroic writer, something's happening here that I'm uncomfortable with. In these early days, I did feel very torn between the rights of a writer whom I loved and the rights of a people from whom I come. The Satanic Verses made me understand the relationship between freedom of speech and power. I've always thought more freedom is better than less freedom, and censorship by a state is wrong. So when the fatwa happened, lots of us got together and issued a statement saying we defend the right of the writer in this case because it struck me as wrong. Absolutely nobody should be killed for words, for nothing.
At the time, Yasmin learned of two British scholars who'd just returned from Iran and whose actions there may have altered the course of history.
There have been calls for the execution of Mr. Rushdie.
Kaleem Siddiqui was director of the Muslim Institute here in the UK, and he argued for the death sentence for Salman Rushdie.
Kaleem Siddiqui and Ghiyasuddin Siddiqui went to Tehran and asked the Ayatollah to pass the fatwa. I knew because I interviewed both of them. Kaleem was adamant till he died that he did go and he did what he did and was the right thing to do.
And yet Kaleem Siddiqui's son today completely denies that his father went and asked for a fatwa. Is he lying?
I interviewed his father, so he can't deny that.
The fatwa was and remains an order that must be carried out as and when it becomes possible to do so.
Do you think the fatwa would have been issued if they hadn't have made that trip?
No.
So the origins of the fatwa are in this country?
Yeah. Yes.
Today's violence means that 16 people have now died in protest
at Salman Rushdie's novel.
In the Iranian holy city of Qom today, demonstrators made clear their support for the Ayatollah by declaring their readiness to carry out the death sentence on Mr. Rushdie.
The call to kill Rushdie, led by Iran, soon turned an argument about a book into a global diplomatic crisis.
It is a fundamental matter of freedom of speech, and we cannot have other people inciting their citizens to murder one of our citizens.
Then, in an act of terror on UK soil, a London bookshop was targeted by Muslim militants.
The bomb went off at 3 o'clock this morning. Anti-terrorist squad officers were called to the scene, and they're investigating a possible link with 3 other attacks on bookshops in London in recent months.
Despite the violence, here in the UK, the book was not withdrawn from publication.
If nothing else, the controversy over Satanic Verses has helped sales. It's currently the best-selling novel in Britain and now looks like being a runaway success in the United States as well.
And in response to the fatwa, the author was unrepentant.
I wish I'd written a more critical book. I mean, a religion that claims that is able to behave like this, religious leaders, let's say, who are able to behave like this, and then say that this is a religion which must be above any kind of whisper of criticism. I mean, that doesn't add up. It seems to me that Islamic fundamentalists could do with a little criticism right now.
The Satanic Verses controversy claimed the lives of 59 people across the world, and the author himself went into hiding for the next 9 years. At school in Huddersfield, I was too young to understand the magnitude of what was going on, but we all knew about Rushdie.
This is my old school. I swear, it looks so much smaller. This is the yard where I became aware of Salman Rushdie and the Satanic Verses, and that's because there used to be a game. I'm laughing because I feel really odd saying this. The game was called How Would You Kill Salman Rushdie? He was like a boogeyman. So it's not as if as 8-year-old kids we were aware of the politics. But he was the bad guy.
As I was growing up, a more conservative form of Islam was being ushered in. It caused an awakening for many Muslims in the UK, driving some to the political extremes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, how are you?
You're right. I'm really good, thank you.
Like many young Muslims at the time who went on to become extremists, Shahid Butt points to the Satanic Verses as the key reason for becoming politically active.
The Salman Rushdie affair was a kind of a turning point in my life. There was this call out for a big sort of demonstration in London.
The protests in the UK culminated in a march on the Houses of Parliament, attended by an estimated 70,000 Muslim protesters. 24-year-old Shahid was one of them.
So what happened was that coaches up and down the country were gathering outside all the local mosques. Local businessmen had paid for the coaches, and the people could literally jump on the coach. And that's how I got there. You know, I wasn't a practicing Muslim. I didn't pray 5 times a day. I didn't know anything about my religion at the time. I just knew that this guy had written a book where he had insulted the Prophet, our Prophet. He'd insulted his wives. He said a lot of bad things about Islam. And initially, I kind of thought, yeah, okay, you know what I mean? It's a free holiday, free trip to London, yeah? And they're paying for it. And why not? Let's go down and, you know.
Just the impression I get is it wasn't really about blasphemy.
I wasn't 100% sort of, you know, ideologically driven that, you know, I was a seasoned veteran demonstrating and whatever. It was an experience for me.
The demonstration began peacefully.
Everybody wanted to sit down and do a sit-down protest. And we kind of did it for about 10 seconds and we're like, we're not a bunch of pussies. So we kind of got up. And then one thing led to another.
101 demonstrators were arrested. Police later blamed the trouble on young militants.
It was mostly done by guys like myself. We weren't the religious type. Police confronted us. So I got grabbed. They pulled me out, gave me some digs, and they got some more guys. And then they took us back to the police station. The two coppers that were holding me, they were talking to each other, and one of them turned around to the other and said, you know, this effing part-time Muslim, let's get a pork sandwich and shove it down his throat. That'll teach him a lesson.
What effect did that have on you?
It got things going in my head. What does it mean by a part-time Muslim?
The bit that sticks in your throat is the bit about you being a part-time Muslim. Why was that
I felt
more
insulted
of a diss?
because even though I wasn't a practicing Muslim at the time, you know, even for those of us who are not practicing, we still hold Islam in a very high regard, because that's just the way we are as people, as kids. That's how we've always been brought up. You don't disrespect your religion. From that moment onwards, I did start to become more practicing. I started to learn more about Islam. There was a period in my life when I did start to take on some of these kind of more extreme ideas and have this kind of mentality where the us and them mentality, and that it's a clash of civilizations. I joined the Bosnian army, their Mujahideen division, and I became a foreign fighter. And then I went on the front line and I fought against the Serbs.
So now you're talking about jihad, basically.
Yeah.
So you're fighting jihad. Did you feel, okay, this is the right thing to do now?
Well, it's a war zone, you know, and jihad is part of our religion. Jihad means to strive and to struggle, yeah? So I was striving and struggling to help my brothers and sisters.
Shahid has since turned his life around and has been helping de-radicalize Muslim extremists for the UK government and others for 15 years. However, during the 90s, he fought armed jihad in Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Kashmir to help defend, as he saw it, fellow Muslims around the world who were under attack. He then returned to Britain to join Islamic fundamentalist hate preacher Abu Hamza and campaigned for the introduction of an Islamic state here in the UK.
I was involved in a lot of different groups, like, you know, with Abu Hamza al-Masri from Finsbury Park Mosque.
Do you regret it?
I don't regret fighting for the sake of Allah to defend my Muslim brothers and sisters who were being oppressed and killed. Yes, if we're talking about some of the more extreme views that I had while I was with some of these groups, then yeah, I mean, now I know better that, you know, that wasn't the right thing to do, and that wasn't the right kind of views to have, and it was wrong, and I shouldn't have done that, and I shouldn't have had those feelings towards other people and whatever. But a lot of it I would put down to anger and frustration.
30 years later, don't you look back on that and think, shit, I should not have been backing those people?
I didn't know any better. I just got caught up in the crowd. I believed what I was being told because I felt that these guys were more intelligent, they were more knowledgeable about Islam than I was. And I fell into that, into that trap like a lot of other people did. Shit happens in life, I did it. We move on, we grow up, we move on, we get wiser, we get better, we get maturer, and we move on, we learn from our mistakes and we learn from our experiences.
If you were going to chat to Salman Rushdie today, what would you say to him?
You're just trying to get a response out of me, aren't you?
Of course I am. Yeah? Like, don't hit me, but if like the face of Salman Rushdie is here, then what would you say?
We'll go, put your hand up again.
No, go on, what would you say?
Today, my response would be different than if you'd asked me 30 years ago. If you'd asked me 30 years ago, I probably would have punched his nose and punched his lights out. I'll tell you straight, that's what I would have done. Today, with all what's going on and the way things are, I think my response would be a lot more measured. I don't think I'd get physical with him. I'll just tell him he's a fucking dickhead, I mean, what kind of a literary writer, academic are you that the only way that you can get any kind of fame is by insulting people and by being derogative and by, insulting billions of people? Is that the best that you can do?
I am astounded at the effect the Satanic Verses had on Shahid's life. He has been in some pretty dark places when he talks about fighting jihad around the world, and I get a distinct sense that he regrets it. But there's a question there. Can being offended about a book actually make you do any of those things? And I think it can't, but that's almost irrelevant, because for him and the generation of people, the book was a catalyst. So it brought to the surface all the stuff like racism, like feeling like the underdog, not feeling at home here. It brought all that to the surface, and it became a symbol of everything that was wrong. The hardening of the Muslim protests against the Satanic Verses inevitably had a disturbing counter effect.
In 1989, Matthew Collins was the 16-year-old chairman of the National Front's London branch. He helped lead a counter-protest in Parliament Square against the Muslim protesters.
It was a very, very hot day in 1989. There was a massive demonstration called for London against the Satanic Verses, and about 20 of us came here to demonstrate against their demonstration.
So is this where you kind of gathered?
Yeah, this was it, yes. We were standing here, we had these banners saying no Muslim wars on British shores, and there were thousands of Muslims running onto Parliament Square in front of Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, and we're like, shit, war's really, really here. So we ran, we scattered, and they sort of took over Parliament Square to have like a bit of a rally. I think at the time we thought, can I use some crude language?
Of course you can.
We just thought they were Pakis who didn't like Pakis. We had no idea what fundamentalism was. We had no idea about anything.
Did you know about the book?
No.
Did you read the book?
No.
Had anyone in your group read the book?
I was in the National Front. We didn't read books.
Matthew Collins left the National Front in 1994 and is now an anti-racism campaigner. When he joined back in the mid-80s, the NF had abandoned any electoral interest and focused instead on swelling its ranks with skinhead activists in their East London and northern strongholds.
I joined the National Front in 1986 because of my concerns about immigration. The National Front, of course, was always an anti-immigration, anti-immigrant party who wanted all these people deported. Whether they were born in Bradford, Burnley or London, they had to go back to where either they or their parents or their grandparents came from. We'd never heard of Muslims. We didn't know what Islam was. We didn't. And then suddenly this whole row erupted about this book. And suddenly people are talking about Muslims and Islam. Then we sort of came to the conclusion that Muslims are a bit precious about their religion. And these people seem to be quite intolerant of a silly book. And so we did pick up quite a few members, people watching these anti-Rushdie protests thinking, well, this is very, 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 very intolerant. We don't want them here. We weren't there to defend Salman Rushdie because he wasn't white anyway. We didn't like him. We didn't want to defend his freedom of speech or his rights to write a book that offended people. We wanted him and them all gone. And then we'd have this peaceful society without them all. A peaceful society run by the National Front. Can you imagine it? Salman Rushdie opened up the eyes for potentially hundreds of thousands of Islamophobes in this country. It riled people, it worried them when they saw riots and they saw people burning effigies. And then we had the dreaded Ayatollah Khomeini issuing a fatwa against a British writer.
Matthew claims the Satanic Verses served as a very effective recruiting sergeant for the National Front.
Satanic Verses wasn't going to put us into Parliament, but we could feel that it was going to swell our numbers. Probably about 40% increase. We knew once this went around that more people would join up with us. You know, more and more people would say, yes, we need to fight these Muslims. And that's what it's been about ever since. The idea is to dehumanize Muslims and all other people, you know, that the National Front doesn't like, so that when the time comes and you're dragging them out of their house to chuck them on the back of a lorry, people are so dehumanized towards them, they don't stand up to protest.
It's a process.
It's a process. Dehumanizing people is a process. I think Salman Rushdie probably started it with his book. It was the best gift ever for the National Front, the best gift ever.
As the National Front fell into decline in the 1990s, other hard-right groups emerged in their wake. They used the war on terror and its effect on worsening relations with British Muslims to reinvigorate their attack. Later acts of terror allowed hard-right activists like Tommy Robinson, formerly of the English Defence League, to thrive. Shortly after the Manchester Arena bombing, he used a right-wing digital channel to bypass the mainstream media and broadcast this Islamophobic attack, his version of free speech.
When you see these communities and you see these houses, you think this is a British community, or you might have British Muslims. They are enemy combatants in these houses. In these houses are enemy combatants who want to kill you, maim you, and destroy you.
Stephen Yaxley Lennon, that's his real name, appeared at the Old Bailey at the end of September.
The full weight of the establishment is coming down on my shoulders because I speak openly and honestly and tell the facts about Islam.
Freedom of speech! They're calling Tommy Robinson a Nazi because he's putting the light on a load of Muslim fucking nonsense.
What Tommy Robinson has tried to do is intellectualize racism. He presents an argument that this is not about skin color, it's not about race, it's about what people believe. And as a result of that, we see that this discourse has become mainstream. Tommy Robinson's ideas are shared online and they're discussed in our papers on a weekly basis. And the idea that Muslim values and British values are not compatible was not even on our radar pre-Satanic Verses. That stuff is scary and it needs to be challenged. I don't buy Tommy Robinson's argument. I think it is racist. So it needs to be called out. But what we can't allow it to do is stop us from asking difficult questions and having those debates.
Mobeen Azhar
on BBC Asian Network.
Yes, it is. This is Mobeen Azhar. I'm going to be with you all the way till midnight, and we are going to be talking about blasphemy. Yes, we are. 30 years on from the release of the Satanic Verses. You know, the Salman Rushdie book ended in him getting a fatwa, lots of people saying it was blasphemous. To get to the very core of the issue, I decided to use my radio show to find out what people think today about the issue of blasphemy in a free society. Where in a progressive, liberal society, should you be able to pass comment on other people's religion? Should there be a law against blasphemy? What does this geezer think?
Please, whatever you do, please don't defame a religion.
Blasphemy law in England and Wales, which protected Christianity only, was abolished in 2008. Now, racist and religious hate crime laws are in place to protect everyone from hostility or prejudice based on their race or religion. But that doesn't stop some from wanting their religion to have further protection. Imam Masood Zaman, welcome to the Asian Network.
Me, my faith is far more important to me than my race. So if there are laws to protect my race, it's only common sense that there should be laws to protect my faith, especially with the rise of the far right.
I've got with me Sadia Hamid. She's an activist. I can describe you as an activist.
Yeah, you could describe me however you want.
Sadia, and you're an ex-Muslim,
yes.
Yeah? In our society, should we be able to diss God?
Yeah.
That's it. That's really pithy. Okay.
That's it, yes.
But why?
Islam really needs to be dragged into 2018. So I don't understand what you actually want, what kind of blasphemy law you want then, because what you're asking for is a protection of Islam or your faith rather than protecting you as an individual.
There is already a law in place, the Racial and Religious Hatred Act 2006 is already in place.
That's for individuals, not for ideas. You're asking for a law to protect your ideas.
But I don't think he's saying there should be punishment. You're not saying there should be punishment, are you? Or are you? I just want to clarify.
Punishment? Look, I'll tell you what the Quran says. Revile not you those whom they call upon besides Allah, lest they out of spite revile Allah in their ignorance.
The discussion around blasphemy is still raging. Most of the people I was speaking to weren't even born when the Satanic Verses was published, but it hangs as this shadow over all of us. It's become part of our DNA in terms of how we view an entire community. It's very difficult, and I don't think we have fully exorcised the spectre of the Satanic Verses affair.
I was intrigued by what former Muslim Sadia Hamid had to say on the radio show, so I went to find out more about her at her campaign office. Sadia's organisation, the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, uses the idea of blasphemy as a tool to challenge aspects of Islam that she finds conservative and archaic. But as a pretty liberal-minded Muslim, even I was shocked when I saw some of her banners.
This is our most popular banner, and weirdly, we didn't get killed for it.
I don't like it, Sadia. I don't like it.
Tell me.
This has the name of the Prophet on it. So my default is to pick it up.
But it's a play on what actually, what Muslims consider to have happened, right?
Completely. So, yeah. So, you know, like we learned from when we were kids, Muhammad split the moon.
Yeah.
And so this, it just feels kind of exploitative. And it feels exploitative in terms of this isn't about taking people to an argument or talking about criminalizing homosexuality. This is about, yeah, I guess it is. It's comedy. It's comedy. So sure, and I can see the funny side of it. The bit that I'm not with you is when I see this, I just see it as divisive and like a bit of a piss take. I've just been reading the Satanic Verses for the first time, and my issue with it is when he is taking the piss, and it's kind of similar to this. Now, there's a point, it's like, you know, you can go up to this line here, and if you just put a finger over that line, you know you're gonna get a response. And when he's writing that, and when you're writing this, it's like, I'm gonna get that response.
But then what is the alternative? How do we raise these issues without some provocation?
Sadia used to be a practicing Muslim, but as a teenager, she began to question her faith. Then at 19, she formally told her family she had left Islam.
When I first left Islam, my hatred and my feelings were really like corrosive. I felt really angry. I was like, I have no place here. They don't care for me. I don't belong here. And actually people need that reaction. You know, they have to be able to express that. We're not even allowed to say that.
When Sadia took to the streets with her placards at London's biggest gay march, they provoked an outcry from some Muslim leaders who claimed they were Islamophobic.
Every time we do something like this and everybody kicks off, it's keeping us in the dark ages. It means that, you know, we can never ever laugh at Islam. Well, that's not a mature sort of way of being.
I get that.
We need to be able to talk about things. We need to be able to take the piss out of things. There's this kind of sentiment now, I think it's been around for a few years, where people are going a little bit crazy, where if they're offended, it has to stop. That can't keep happening. You can't blindly follow something and not question it.
I believe in free speech, and I would defend Sadia's right to say what she wants to say. But as a believer, when I see those placards and I see the word Allah and the name Muhammad on the floor, there's a visceral response. You know, I still have a Quran high up on a shelf in my flat. There is a respect and a reverence there. So when Sadia argues that she has to have insult, you have to have comedy in order to engage people, I don't think that's right. If you want to take people with you, insulting them isn't the way to do that.
Once again, I'm heading back to Bradford, where the notorious book burning took place. Something we're still feeling the impact of today.
Of course I would have written the book. If I want to write a book in a certain way, that's my right. I mean, I walk into a bookshop, there are lots of books in it that I don't like. You know, there's lots of books in it that you could say offended me. I don't burn the bookshop down. You know, I just go and choose a book I like. There we are, that's the whole story. I'm just really tired of religious people saying they need special treatment. Nobody deserves special treatment. Deal with it. It's a mistake of our time to have allowed religious extremism to try and set the terms and say you can't do anything that we don't like, because otherwise we'll come and kill you. Well, that's the crime. Books are not crimes, books are books.
I want to find out how much the world has moved on and assess the strength of feeling 30 years on.
I just want your opinion on something. Do you know what that is?
No, it's rubbish though.
Why is it rubbish?
Would people be willing today to have a discussion with me about the content of the book?
This book, no, I've never read.
Tell me what you think about this sentence.
I wouldn't want to.
You don't want to, no problem. This is a book by Salman Rushdie, published 30 years ago. And it's a novel, so it's meant to be a work of fiction.
Yeah. The 15-year-old whore, Aisha, was the most popular with the paying public, just as her namesake was with Mahmoud.
So the prostitutes are named after the wives of the Prophet.
Basically.
Yeah?
He's trying to say it, but at the same time he's trying to not say it.
I mean,
saying like a fictional way.
That's the thing. You don't seem that offended. Do you think it's up for grabs? It's alright for people to write stuff.
No. It's not alright.
You don't? Why not?
I feel like there should be limits upon what you write and boundaries in order to keep respect.
And if that's not met, then I don't really agree with it. I do find it offensive because at the end of the day, if it is about Islam, then that's about my religion and about so many other people's religion that it's normal for people to find offensive.
So there's boundaries.
Boundaries, and there should be respect and everything between everything that's said and put out there.
Oh, is that Salman Rushdie?
It is.
Is that the Satanic Verses?
It is. Do you know it?
Yeah, I got a long history with that. I got arrested on them riots.
No way! So were you at the demo here?
Yeah.
What about the book burning? Did you see that?
I was here. Who are you? Have you read it?
I've read it.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? So I'm from Huddersfield.
Right.
Live in London.
Right. And how come you're holding the Satanic Verses?
Do you think I shouldn't be holding it?
I'm not, no comment.
So what you meant when you said where you're from, you meant are you Muslim, didn't you? That's what you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would it make a difference if I was Muslim? I mean, I am Muslim. But you think as a Muslim I shouldn't be holding the book?
No. Let me see what the...
Will you read this then?
Yeah.
And will you tell me what you think?
Yeah, I will.
You're not going to get angry?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah. How many wives? 12 and one old lady, long dead. How many whores behind the curtain? 12 again.
Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, he's a devil worshipper. The curtain is the curtain on the day of judgment that is lifted when you go to the thing here, and the whores are the wives the Muslims have in heaven.
Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Come and talk to me. Why are you running off?
You need educating, brother.
I need educate. Come and talk to educate me then. I encountered a wide range of reactions in the square that day. But what about the man who bought the book Soaked in Petrol to the square 30 years ago? How does he feel looking back? What do you think the legacy is of what you did here with the book?
The government didn't listen. The book is still there. What it did do is to raise awareness about the feelings of Muslims in the community, so that the community of other authors don't write similar book about Muslims. We end up in a similar situation again. So by burning one book, what we did was to promote peace at that time.
Do you see the kind of contradiction there? Like saying we were promoting peace by burning a book.
Yeah.
Does that sense that it doesn't trip off the tongue nicely? Do you see that?
Oh, no, I disagree, because our aim was not creating problems. It was to bring peace in the city. And yes, we burned the book. The feelings of the people are inflamed, non-Muslim, Muslim as well, you can say. But then we set the agenda. We said, look, this is our issue. It is sad, unfortunately, because I feel that the media could have played a better role in handling the situation.
I know, but Mohammed, what I'm really asking is, using a word like unfortunately suggests it just happened. It didn't just happen. Like, you soaked a book in paraffin and set fire to it. So what I'm saying is there a bit of you that thinks we went too far?
Perhaps it inflamed the feeling of people in the community, and if it did do that, we feel sorry for that. We didn't intend to cause that feeling, that hurt. Perhaps we did go a bit far. Perhaps not. I don't know.
There's a sense of reluctant regret here, but for some, there's also a simmering anger that's as strong now as it was 30 years ago. Excuse me, stop looking at your eye. Have you got a second? The author said it's a critique of religion. That's useful. Is that...
Oh, come on then. Come on then. Come on then. You fucking bastard. Come on then. In the book.
Can I have my book back?
Fuck you. In the book. No, it's in the book, no. Come on then. Fuck you. I'm going to burn this book. Film it. Go, film it. Fuck off, it's about a prophet. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck you.
Walk out.
Shut it. Salman Rushdie.
Shut your mouth right now. Shut your mouth. I knew what the book was about. That's why I didn't want to do bullshit with you. You can record it, you can put it over BBC Media, I don't give a fucking shit. You know you're coming to Bradford, okay, Muslim girl, trying to say that shit.
How's that Muslim ghetto? I'm from down the road, I'm from Huddersfield.
I don't
This
care
is
where
not a
you're
Muslim
from.
ghetto, I'm a
care where
Muslim.
you're from. You go into a Muslim populated area, trying to say shit about
I'm a
about
Muslim.
prophet. When you're going to get a response like that, be prepared, that's all I'm
So
saying.
you think it's reasonable for someone to grab a book and start ripping it up?
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can. If you feel offended, you can burn the book. But the question is, what are you going to do about it then?
Have you heard of the Satanic Verses?
No, I've not.
Okay, so it's by an author called Salman Rushdie.
I don't want to read the book. I don't want to read the book.
So you don't want to read it because what you've heard?
Because of what I know. I know who that guy is. I know what he's talking about. It's all bullshit. There you go. Put it on BBC Media.
You would say
Ahmadullah one, that's my name as well. There you go. Get on my face.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. Has he burned it? Where is he?
Burned the book.
What? He's actually burnt it?
Yeah.
Where is he burnt it?
He's gone up done. He's burning on the way.
Is he up there? Did you actually see him start a fire? It's got burn marks on it. He's actually set fire to it. Can't see him. I felt really a bit odd walking through the square with the Satanic Verses, but I did not for a second think someone was going to get so offended that they'd grab it out of my hand and set fire to it. We're talking about something that happened 30 years ago. To understand that level, that kind of visceral response, I don't get it. I do not get it. I keep looking over my back because I think he's going to come back in a second. I felt offended by parts of this book. That does not mean I want to shut down discussion. That does not mean I want to argue and fight with people. It does not mean that I want to curb someone else's rights to discuss things or write things. People chipping in, saying, oh yeah, you come to Bradford, there's Muslims here, you should expect this kind of trouble. Are you mad? Do you know what? As a community, we do not have the maturity to even have these discussions. We are so ready to react. That's all that was about. That was a reaction, an unthinking reaction. An unthinking, shut down the discussion, can't have a conversation reaction. That's all it was. I'm just properly pissed off. I'm really pissed off that I can't have a discussion here. As a child, when I heard about the Satanic Verses, I thought all the fuss was about a book, but it was so much more than that. It became a symbol of everything we'd been through. It was about racism, it was about ridicule, it was about the immigrant experience. So religion became this rallying point, something we could cling to and fight for. And sure, you could say we found our voice through those protests, but so much of that reaction, it was ugly and it was ill thought out. And we created this caricature. The Muslim bogeyman was born. It ushered in this age of division, with Muslims being seen as the other. But we're not outsiders. We're a really important part of British society. But we have to be able to stomach debates about our culture and actually our religion as well, even if we find them offensive. We have to be able to do that, and it's only when we can do that that the ghost of the Satanic Verses will truly be put to bed.